Gina.
I believe we're live. It says it
live?
right there. If it says it on the screen, it must be true.
Where?
If social
Oh,
media
look at that. It does say it. Holy cow. Hey, everybody. Welcome. We're back once again with TMI, the podcast. I'm Ron from Las Vegas, Nevada.
And I'm Mike from Amarillo, Texas.
And we're here once again to talk about, just the remember when stuff that us Gen Xers talk about quite a bit, but thought we'd just throw it out here live on air and spitball it and see what sticks.
Well, that's because you figure us baby boomers are dying. So we'll just go ahead and talk about this crap. Since Mike's supposed to be dead, he's a baby boomer. Nah, it's cool. So
before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to not necessarily a sponsor, but a good friend, owner of a bar here in town, of Steiner's Pubs, Nevada style pub, 3 locations here in the Las Vegas Valley. If you're here in Las Vegas or if you're ever here visiting, by all means, please check out one of the Steiner's Pubs. Guaranteed to have a great time, great food, great menu, great beer selection, and most of all, just a fantastic atmosphere.
Outstanding. We could easily wear shirts that say that on there. I'm just throwing that out.
I'm down. I'm sure once he sees us, he'll be giving us. In fact, he just sent me. He just sent me.
Hey, Michelle.
Oh, do we have somebody live?
Michelle's here. Hello from. Well, we know where she is.
So why can I not see her? That's no fun.
Oh, can you not see her? Oh, maybe I need to. How about that?
Oh, there you go. Hello, friend to meet
you. Yeah.
So today's topic, for those that don't know, this podcast is mainly about just generational fun, things that we remember when we were kids growing up, and we hope that it sparks some things in you that you remember that, kids and young adults in today's day and age just aren't going to remember or don't know, and unfortunately we'll never know. So Mike has posted the question of the topic: were the 80s the best decade ever? Yes or no? Mike, what do you think?
I'm going to say no. But I will tell you, the 80s treated me very well from a radio perspective. But was it the best decade ever? Nah, I don't think so. It had some good points.
And what did I tell you remember before we started, Mike? I said, if you say no, you're what? Wrong.
No matter what I say, I'm going to be wrong. By the way, got to say hello to the cuz. He's checking in from Colorado Springs.
Matt Rogers,
so we have them all over the place, man.
Yeah, I'm sure this cat's name will come up once or twice.
Yeah, I'm sure Matt will show up a few times. In fact, I know you do have some great stories about Matt. I've got a couple, but we'll get to those at some other juncture. But 80s from my career perspective, I will tell you the 80s treated me extremely well, very well. I made decent money. I worked at, I was actually at one point rated I believe I was in the top 5-7 to midnight jocks in the country.
Nice.
When I was rolling at WQUT in Johnson City, Tennessee. So the 80s, from that perspective, made me, it treated me well. But from your perspective, because it's a more recognizable decade for you, it's more identifiable, I think.
No, sure. Yeah, it was, unfortunately, see, about that time, I really wasn't in the workforce per se. But so most of my memories of that are going to be of the fun stuff. Matter of fact, speaking of Matt Rogers, he had sent me a text message I posted on our site. Some things that I had totally forgotten about in my youth. And thanks for reminding me, Matt. I appreciate it.
That's what this thing's all about, man.
And I'm sure it will come up here momentarily. But yeah, so I think that's the difference between you and I. I mean, we're not separated by decades of time, but it's a good 6 years, 7 years.
Right.
And but I remember the fun things of being a kid. In the 80s, I was, in my early teens, late teens. I think I turned 20 in the 80s. So yeah, I have memories of all the good stuff.
Well, and this just dawned on me while you were talking. I can't say too much bad about the 80s because I got married in 82.
Yeah.
So, and still got the same woman. I'm still married to the same one.
And we're all still surprised.
No doubt, right? I'm sure it shocks a lot of people. Yeah, I got married in 82.
Wow.
Really, the 80s, I started my career in the very late 70s, early 80s. And so, yeah, spent time in KRDO is where I launched this nonsense. Hey, look who's checking in. You're going to love this one.
Oh, man. Yeah, I sent this guy a message.
You can't tell time, Kenny. We've only been telling people all fucking afternoon what time the thing starts.
Yeah, I told him, I said, you better be on live tonight because last time the last one we did wasn't live. It was a canned episode, but his name came up at least twice that I remember. So
yeah,
I'm sure he'll be
a show about this
regular.
Guy. We can do a whole show about Kenny, but yeah, it's got married in 82, launched my career in Colorado Springs at KRDO, pretty much in the mid 80s, early to mid 80s, before I took off for Tennessee. So far as music, now I'm looking at it more though, Ron, just music. I mean, I'm looking at everything else, fashion. When I think 80s, this is where my mind goes when I think 80s. Flock of Seagulls.
Oh, yeah. You had to dig the hairdo. You had to dig
Debbie Gibson. I'm going Tiffany.
Prince.
Speaking of that mess.
Yeah.
As Ronnie and I were doing that before you guys could see us. But
so speaking of music, Mike, I want to bring something up, and speaking of the cousins in the neighborhood, do you remember back in the day when MTV was actually music television, and you would literally watch us all day long waiting for your video to come on, man? I mean, when it came on, it was just like everybody just shut up, it's on. And I remember living in the fourplex, me and mom, and then the cousins and Aunt Linda lived in the same complex as we did, and we'd pile into their living room and watch MTV all day long, and again, it's one of those things that kids today, or even in their 30s or so, all they know MTV is reality TV. It's not about the music. It's not about the genre that we grew up in.
And that's what MTV has become. I mean, when you're showing things like Cribs, Baby Mamas and all this other shit, it's they've alienated. That's what's happened. And again, we talked about this on the recorded when we did a few days ago, and that's. These are just things that you and I remember because we were there, we lived it, and it wasn't like it was that like as ancient times.
Sure.
But when MTV came on, it's exactly like you just said, brother. It was music television.
Yes.
And so you watched it for the videos because until MTV came along, that was the whole premise of MTV. Nobody was really doing videos, but once MTV came around. One of the most successful ones that comes to my mind is like, Aha.
Oh yeah,
I think it's a Take on Me, the one where it was sort of a pencil.
Take on Me, absolutely. And one of the, matter of fact, it's very much on TikTok. So here's how things translate generationally. On TikTok, they had a version of Aha where that cartoon kind of video they played. You remember that?
Yeah.
You could do that on TikTok where you could film yourself or do whatever, and it had that Aha theme to it. So, it's how things in the past repeat themselves today. Matter of fact, not to skip subjects, but I think we talked about it before too, about fashion. You just said fashion earlier. My 13-year-old granddaughter shows up at my house the other day wearing bell bottoms.
Sweet.
And I'm like, if they were corduroy, that would have been even better.
That's even better. Listen, I thought
flammable hair.
Yeah, see Kenny's flammable hair. That's his memory of the 80s. And he probably means that too, because I think his did actually catch flame a few times.
And again, I say that would not surprise me.
Yeah, well, but yeah, for me, it's music. It's the fashion. Think about what was big in the 80s. Technology today is only here because of some of the things that happened in the 80s. Sony Walkman comes to mind.
Sure.
Everybody had to have a Walkman.
The calculator watch.
Oh, heck yeah, man. The old Casios.
Yeah.
So that's, these are things that, what about you? If you're watching this right now, did you have any of these things? I didn't have the calculator watch. Mood ring. Was that more 70s or 80s?
Those are actually still an in kind of thing. Ask my wife. She'll tell you. She I think, I think it kind of depends upon the person, but those are still actually a thing. What also brought to mind when we started this whole thing, Mike, is I think what we're talking about is very much not only generational, but geography based, because things that happen on the East Coast versus the West Coast or Colorado, or you couldn't turn up because you had to see what the next video is. Oh, absolutely. Geographical. So what people remember in the East Coast may not be what people remember on the West Coast or the Midwest.
Right.
So when Mike and I talk, we're talking about, growing up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So it was mountains, snow, cold.
We were the snow shovels in our family.
Oh my Lord! Yes,
we didn't have a snowblower; couldn't afford one. Mood rings come to mind.
Tim here saying about the MTV music. He says you couldn't turn it off because you had to see what the next video was going to be, and on and on. So it's kind of like MTV was like the TikTok of the '80s. Because I'll admit it, man, I'm a bad TikToker, man. I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going to sit down and watch TikTok for 10 minutes. And I look at my watch, it's been an hour and 20 minutes. I'm like,
that's exactly what happens. That's why I can't do that stuff. If I do, it's an hour and a half later and I'm going, where the hell did the time go? So what do you think? If you're tuned in, first of all, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the podcast. This is our first live one. Ronnie and I have practiced a few of them and put a recorded one up, but we got it set up today where we don't have to use all the StreamYard stuff. We can now use our own stuff. But is the 80s the best decade ever? I do have kind of a funny story about MTV, though.
Go ahead.
And I hate to keep, and it's because I'm older and I've done some stupid things in my life. But this is actually a fun story. This is when I was doing 7 to midnight at QUT in Johnson City, Tennessee. And we announced that Bon Jovi was going to come play Freedom Hall. And Freedom Hall was a pretty big venue there. That's where all of our big shows played. That's where I met most of the people I got to meet. The Tina Turner picture I sent you guys a little while ago, that was at Freedom Hall. But anyway, long story short, Bon Jovi booked this event, this show, without realizing they had another show. And I think it was on Australia. So they had to cancel the show.
Oh, no.
At the time, Downtown Julie Brown was on MTV, right? So she apparently goes on MTV and says something about me and the guy that was helping me pimp the show, Ricky, and says, well, Johnson City, Tennessee is not good enough to have Bon Jovi anyway. And so my program director, Mark, happened to know the head of MTV at the time. And so he comes telling me like 2 days later, he says, let me tell you what kind of shit's going down. So I gave MTV a ration of shit. I took them to task. I literally have to this day in my possession an apology letter from one Julie Brown for having said that. And to make up for it, Bon Jovi couldn't play Freedom Hall. They ended up playing in Knoxville, but they bussed 2 buses of listeners down to that show down there. So it worked out pretty good.
Nice.
But yeah, it was funny because I hadn't really dealt with showbiz by that point. And so I wouldn't try to take it. I thought, wow, an MTV video VJ is what they were, is talking about me. So at first I was impressed until I realized she's blasting me in our radio station, and it made me mad. So yeah, she was talking smack, Julie Brown. So
hey, way to go!
That's what I mean Julie by Brown. From that perspective. Yeah, 80s were a good decade. But if the question is, was it the best decade ever? My answer is no. But Annie Christopher,
Annie, I agree, Annie. I'm going to tell you why I agree with you, Annie. Andy just said the 80s were definitely the best. I'll tell you what, man, we can stretch this out from music to movies to BMX bicycles to I mean, there's so many things that we could say the 80s were the best. I mean,
Right.
the big bouffant hairdos, Jerry curl. I mean, you name it. There were so many different facets of the 80s. And it just kind of seems to me that everything in today's day and age is just kind of compartmentalized.
It is, and I love the way, Ron, that you're actually dissecting that, and that is, we have to keep in mind the premise of what we're doing here is, trying to draw the difference of then as compared to today, and even from that standpoint, you're on it, dude. Everything today is compartmentalized. You have music, one of the things we'll get to at some point, and I have it written down. I was going to call it old school downloading. It's because I think Michelle had asked when we were thinking about topics. She said, "What about?" I don't know if it was you or Michelle that said, "What about sitting next to a radio with your tape recorder, waiting for your favorite song to come on,
so you can record it,
and so you can record it,
baby."
And you hope to hell the stupid DJ would shut up." So that you can get most of the song, and but we'll get into that some other time. But that's kind of my mindset when you're dissecting it the way you were, and that is, kids, young adults today don't know what old school downloading is because all they've known is the digital generation.
You want to know what our old school downloading was, Mike? Right there. See behind my shoulder? You see that thing right there?
Telephone.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know,
weren't that old.
Look, dude, the telephone for us, one, was a rotary dial phone. Two, it probably had about a 50-foot long cord attached to it so you could have a little privacy.
Amen.
You need to talk to somebody.
Dude, do you remember winning a radio contest?
And three, that's how you ask people out. That's how you broke up with somebody. And the thing about it is that the beauty of it is if I'm out playing, I'm doing something, I don't know that Bobby called me until 7:00 at night when I get home. Everything in today's day and age is instantaneous. It happens right now. The
other thing
I think it kind of takes away from the personability, if that's a word, of relationships.
The other thing that the difference there for me is when people called, there was no caller ID. You had to answer the damn phone. So there was no call screening unless you got somebody else to answer the phone for you. Hey, man, if that's Susie, tell her I'm not here.
Yeah, right. As they hear in the background, tell her I'm not here.
So that's, today you get that luxury. And I will tell you, now that we're talking about that, we're off the beaten path a little bit, but this is my other problem with digital technology today is it allows the person on that end the opportunity they don't have to take responsibility for anything.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't tell you how many people I see that rather than call and use that thing that we call a smartphone, rather than using it for its intended purpose, they'd rather shoot you a text or send you an email because they don't want to have to confront you.
Yeah, we call those keyboard gangsters.
It's just, is that what it is? See, that's how far behind the time. I don't.
Yeah, it's real easy to be a tough guy or arrogant or whatever when you're sitting behind a keyboard. So it can't say when you moved into a push button phone, you remember patterns much. Absolutely. No, Kenny, I agree with you 100%, man. It was I couldn't remember phone numbers, but I knew what pattern it had to be. So yeah, absolutely, man. How many of you, especially like Ken Hall, how many of you actually remember your phone number from when we
see? I've seen that question asked before. I can't.
5911730. Remember it like it was yesterday. I have no idea why. Remember. I can't remember what I ate for lunch yesterday, but I can remember my phone number from 40 years ago.
Now, which house was this?
Debonair.
Now, what was the number?
5911730.
That was our number.
That was.
Let's call it and see who answers.
Let's see who answers.
Man, see, I've seen that question before, and I have no earthly clue. 591. I'm going to do that. I'm going to call him. Say, hey man, this was my number 40 something years
calls
ago.
were easier, not that I would know. Yeah. Okay, Matt. You and I are going to have a little conversation, Matt, because Matt actually brought up a few things, and actually one of our other friends, I won't say his last name yet, but Rich, they had both made a couple of comments on the TMI page on Facebook that again made me chuckle because it was things that I did. You see the tattoo on my arm here, what it says atonement, mainly because I wasn't always a nice guy, and I used
none of us were.
Used to do some dumb stuff, and we as adults have to atone for our sins. And I used to do some dumb stuff.
Well,
but Matt reminded me
that's why
of a couple
when we were
of them. Matt reminded me of a couple of them made me chuckle.
When we were recording the one the other day, and we said, we'll talk about some other things. And I said, well, we might need to research the statute of limitations.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not so sure that mine might not qualify for some jail time.
Absolutely.
So anyway, 80s the best decade ever, yes or no? Let's just be definitive about it. It's been 21 minutes. I'm still saying no, but and that's to be expected of me because for me the 70s were the better decade.
So just out of curiosity, let me pose the question of what do you think it is that made 70s better than the 80s for you personally?
I think it was the freedom of the 70s. It was
talking free love, baby, or
no, it's not so much the peace, love, dope, Hare Krishna, and crash pads. It was just I saw this posted once, and it really hit home with me. And it was we didn't realize then just how good we had it.
Amen.
There's a picture of a house with a bunch of bikes in front of it. And it was something to the effect of this was our social, this is how we knew where all the friends were. It wasn't by texting. It's the house with all the bikes is where everybody was. You could work on a car in your driveway. It was just, to me, it was I don't know that it was a simpler time. It's just like maybe Gen Xers with the 80s. For me, it was you look back and you just, man, you just didn't know how good you had it until you reached this point. And
I was talking with one of my employees about that, Mike, and I told him, I said, I remember as a kid, we never locked our front door, really. We had a screen door on the front of it. Nobody was concerned about locking their car at night because it was like, it was completely unheard of back then, and
brings up another story.
Other than some, yard animals missing every once in a while, Mike, Ken, it was, it absolutely was. I think is the best way to put it. And I think it's a bit of a cliche, but yeah, it was a simpler time. It was where you, like you said, you knew who your friends were, you knew who your enemies were. Nowadays, they're kind of one and the same, depending upon what social media application you're on.
You know what really just hit me about it, though? I think I really, and for those that are tuned in, I want to know what you think about this. I think the answer just hit me. The reason why the 70s are better to me is because I exited my childhood from the 70s. By the 80s, I started working. So
and that was my point from the beginning. When I said I think that's why the 80s were better for me was my memories of it weren't about, oh my God, I gotta go to work. Oh my God, I'm getting married. Oh my God, I gotta pay bills, and so to me it was all about the MTV and the fun and some of you'll get this, the dirt clod fights and the wrist rockets and shooting people's headlights out with the BB gun and just dumb shit like that.
That has to do with my side notes over here. Why are we still alive? Literally, that's what I have written down. Why are we still alive?
100% yes, the 80s were the best. Thank you, Matt. I agree wholeheartedly. So I think we've kind of come to the conclusion that based upon when you left your childhood, air quotes, is going to be pretty much be the catalyst of what you think would have been the best. So Matt, let me pose this question to Matt. Shoot me something that you think was the best of the 80s, something that you remember, something that you can think of that is takes you back just like that. So I'll give you a few minutes to respond. I'm not sure how quickly this thing works, but I want to know what your thoughts are, or the things that bring you back to it. Because, man, I know how I am. I could hear a song. And we talked about this last time, Mike. I watched this post on TikTok about a guy opening a video cassette tape, taking it out and putting it in the VCR. And it's like, I can imagine, I can close my eyes and I can see myself doing it.
And I get it. I can do the same thing. And that's where I think the 80s, you think about it, the 80s were really the watermark for things like Blockbuster. There was a video rental place like in every little strip mall around the corner.
And I hear they're making a comeback.
Are they?
Yeah, I heard they're going to open some more. Huh. It takes between 69 seconds between sending the text when it pops up on the screen. Thank you, Ken. You are such a kind animal.
Yeah. Today. He wasn't 40 years ago.
Did your uncle buy you that computer?
He probably is already tired of hearing about Uncle Wally. Poor Kenny. Every time I see him, that's it's like, hey, remember Uncle Wally? He's probably thinking, you fucking think of anything else other than Uncle Wally?
But you know what, Mike? I have friends of mine. We do the same stuff. Remember back we used to do this and this. Yeah.
All right. So 80s best decade ever. Kenny's got another one, but that one only took 20 seconds. All right. What else you want to do? So we've covered. So I'm going to submit to the fact that right now the people that we have listening, the people that we have watching, the 80s would be the best decade. I think I'm the only one that's arguing the 70s were better. That's because
Kenny said he agrees the 70s are better, but he's old as dirt just like you are, so it's understandable.
Well, I don't think I'm as old as dirt.
Did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. That was
this thing on?
Inside voice.
Is this thing on?
Yeah.
So, and here's the other thing. Let's go ahead and get this out real quick. Listen, man, if you're watching, if you're listening, if you have a topic that you'd like to maybe throw out there, man, we want to hear from you.
Just non-political, non-religious.
Send it to us. And we because I know it's it's going to sound like Ron and I just sharing old memories, but we hope that's the reason why I was so excited when Ron talked me into this after the first one. Is we're going to share an awful lot about what we did when we were kids, but we're hopeful that it triggers some memories for you and causes you to want to post, share with us. You know what? I forgot all about that. I said on the radio show the other day about the handwritten note in the dollar bill and buying mom a pack of smokes. And it was, can I tell you this? My whole hour is usually on local politics and that kind of stuff. I threw that out there. I think it was yesterday, and the phone went off the hook. We just went full on nostalgic. And I thought, Pop-Tarts, I mentioned Pop-Tarts one time a couple weeks ago, and it just sent people off into, I love this. I thought, really? I'm supposed to be talking about local politics and that kind of stuff, but if you want to go Pop-Tarts, I'm game. So there you go. Kenny says, Ron, you're grounded.
Ron, you're grounded.
And Tim Cato is actually a friend of mine. I definitely want to have this conversation with you over lunch. You have to know Cato. Cato is he's actually one of the coolest cats I know. He's talk about a guy that's been at it for a long time. I think Tim's been with one of the local TV stations for 35 years.
Wow.
Somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah, been at it for quite some time. So if there's anything, and again, Ronnie and I, and we'll have guests on, we can.
I was going to say, people that you don't have to just type in, man. If you ever want to put a face to the name, I mean, we can get you on screen and on camera and put you on the podcast with us. Again, I stress this is lighthearted. This is fun stuff, just totally unscripted bullshit we talk about. We don't talk about current events. We don't want to talk about politics. We don't want to talk about. This is just stuff kind of like Mike said, meant to jog your memory of things. Yeah. I had a lady post on there about the same thing about the dollar and the buying cigarettes. She's like, "Oh my god, I totally forgot about stuff like that." And that's the idea of this. And so when I approached Mike with this, that was the whole premise of today's day and age is stressful enough as it is, man. Trying to make a living, the things that are going on in the world, and it's just a nice way to take a step back and take a breath and a blast from the past and be like, man, it was such a nicer time. It was such an easier time for me. And
you're absolutely right, Ron.
And just remember those things.
Everybody that's tuned in and watching right now, think about how you feel right now.
So you see, Matt,
are you thinking about your bills? Are you thinking about your freaking problems?
You're having a good time. Enjoy. Matt just said right now, music for sure, but I think the '80s were what laid the foundation I built my life on. Absolutely, man. Matt, I remember you and Roger are the reason to this day that I love Iron Maiden. Never in a million years would have thought I liked that type of music, because you guys knew I was all cool in the gang and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I rock out to some Iron Maiden today's day and age just because of you guys. So there's lots of things that I may have learned from them and from you, Mike, and from friends in the neighborhood. Not so much Ken, but friends in the neighborhood that, again, like Matt said, those are the things that built the person I am today.
Yeah.
Michelle, commercials from the 80s. Excuse me.
Oh, look, you choked him up.
I know.
Way to go,
Michelle. It's so funny because I was going to bring up movies. We're a little bit over, but I gotta throw this out there. To me, what defines the 80s for me was movies. And I'm going to say this and see how many of you get this, Mike. I'm sure you will, but this is Abe Froman, the Sausage King of Chicago. Right?
I just saw him, not him, but one of the stars in that movie. One of our favorites right now is Only Murders in the Building.
Oh, love that show, dude.
Yeah, and did you see Broderick was on there the other night? On one of the last, Broderick was on there, and it was just dry and funny as hell.
Oh, they're great.
But yeah, if I know what it was, so I don't know. I wish we had a prize to give away.
Yeah,
right answer.
Free trip on your dime to Vegas.
So there you go. Marcy, LOL.
That's my cousin, Marcy. Anyway, hey, Marcy, how are you?
It was Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Bueller.
Oh, God. All right. So as we wrap up, I shared a funny story to wrap up the last one. Do you want to try to do one here? You have anything ready to roll?
I don't.
I'm old. I always have something good to say.
Well, be careful when you say you have everything ready to roll, because that might be taken the wrong way nowadays. Now I got a pre-roll. What are you talking about?
Yeah, right.
No, go ahead, Mike. What do you got?
Well, and this will be a precursor to Why Are We Still Alive? One of the and I kind of don't want to do this now because I don't want to blow it, but one of the things I had written down on the Why Are We Still Alive is Ron, do you remember playing with, I can't remember if it was lighter or matches?
When we shut your pretty mouth.
And you tried to burn the house down?
Well, it wasn't the house. I was. Let me tell the story straight. I was a kid. We were living on Nadine Drive in Colorado Springs, and we had bunk beds in the house, right? And so I'm laying there, and I'm supposed to be taking a nap. And of course, at my age, I don't want to take no damn nap. So I had a little book of matches, and I'm looking up, and I see strings hanging down from the bunk above me. So I light a match, and I light one up, and it just burns off. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool, So I do a few more and a few more, and next thing I know, the whole damn mattress on the top bunk is on fire. So yeah, it was a bit of a pyro. That and the field in the backyard I lit on fire too. So,
oh, that was nice. I had a little bit more than I thought you were going to throw out there, but yeah, I remember Ronnie trying to burn the house down. So and look at here, this is your wife.
He likes naps now. Yes, he does.
All right. Well, keep.
So just for that, Mike, when we close next time, we're going to be talking about the orange beanie, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I'm hip.
We'll save that one for later. I from Vegas just want to thank you guys for all joining in. Again, want to thank Roger from the from Steiner's Pubs. Again, 3 locations here in the Las Vegas Valley. If you're ever here, stop by and see them. And Mike, as always, I love you. Thank you so much for doing this with me. Even though you kicked and screamed, I'm glad we're here, and I look forward to continuing doing this.
Same here. And I don't have a sponsor, so I'm just Mike from Amarillo. Listen, catch me on the radio. You can do that at kgncnewsnow.com. Do me a favor, just click on the Making Sense with Michael J. image. That'll take you to my past shows and some of the blogs that I've written. All right. Love you, brother. Till next time. Hey, keep an eye on the Facebook page. We'll post when we're going to do another live show. How's that? Will that work?
Awesome.
All right. We'll see you all next time. Again, thank you so much.
Bye, guys.